Well, from the KVUE fenders tonight, a Travis County grand jury is considering charges against 18 Austin police officers from a dozen encounters during the George Floyd protests back in May of 2020.
That grand jury nearing a completion of their review, and the outcome is likely to reignite scrutiny on police operations during large protests and gatherings. Senior reporter Tony Plohetski joins us now with more. Hi, Tony.
Brian and Ashley, there is no timeline on when this grand jury could finish their review and decide whether or not to indict those police officers, a larger number than prosecutors had originally said. But tonight we're learning that they are expected to do so well before their term expires at the end of this month.
Going to potentially be a lot of activity outside of here today.
20 months ago, thousands marched in Austin's downtown streets, protesting the murder of George Floyd in Minneapolis and the controversial police shooting of Michael Ramos by APD officer Christopher Taylor. Beginning May 30th, 2020, and continuing through June 6th, about 36 protesters, including Anthony Evans, who we spoke to days later, went to the hospital for a range of injuries that included broken bones and head trauma.
Put my hand up and started running, like jogging, and then turned my face, and then as I turned, I got shot in the cheek.
Now, the KVUE defenders have learned that a grand jury investigation of police actions is nearing its final stages. According to new records obtained by the KVUE defenders from the Travis County District Attorney's Office, prosecutors are focusing exclusively on officers' use of so-called beanbag rounds that caused the most serious injuries. The records show the grand jury is reviewing the actions of 18 officers in instances that injured 12 protesters. They include Anthony Evans.
We need to demand change. You know, a lot of people have been silent for a long time.
Prosecutors will not say what charges are being considered, and it is possible that grand jurors could issue indictments in some cases but not in others, or deem each force encounter justified. Attorneys Doug O'Connell and Ken Irvin, who represent several officers targeted for investigation, say officers face situations that made force necessary and legal.
If they see an individual who is throwing rocks, batteries, other objects, has a weapon, yes, and if that person is presenting a danger, this is a round that is designed to impact the person. It does cause pain. It's going to get your attention, and it is designed to make you stop whatever it is that you are doing. And yes, that is a lawful use.
But Scott Hindler, an Austin attorney who represents 4 injured protesters, said his clients were only exercising their constitutional rights and deserve justice in both civil and criminal courts.
You consider the injuries sustained and the fact that these young people were just expressing their voices to protest what they perceived as systemic police misconduct around the country. They were fired upon for no reason.
Experts say grand jurors likely are primarily considering assault charges against the officers, but that one of the biggest challenges prosecutors face is sorting through what happened during the crowded, volatile protest.
Legally, the situation isn't any different. I think what's more challenging is just figuring out factually what was going on, and was there legal justification for the use of force.
Mark Osler, a law professor at St. Thomas University in St. Paul, Minnesota, said those justifications include whether an officer felt he had to protect himself or others.
It does get complicated when we have this kind of situation where you have protesters, there's chaos to some degree, and then police are trying to create order, and sometimes using too much force to do so.
And whether these 18 officers did, in fact, use too much force is the question before 12 grand jurors deciding where the cases go next.
20 months later, the public still does not fully understand how police responded to the protesters. In a recent court deposition, Police Chief Joe Chacon acknowledged that the department was not prepared for what happened. But the city and APD have not released an after-action report detailing the department's response, and they argue that because it contains sensitive law enforcement information, it must be kept confidential. Brian and Ashley.
Tony, thanks so much. Now, Tony, we have to mention also protest injuries have resulted in about a dozen lawsuits against the city and individual APD officers. Last week, the city settled the first one, paying out $150,000. Tony Plohetski live in the newsroom tonight. Tony, thank you.